She married a homeless stranger to save him. Then discovered he owned $1 billion empire. I have $4 billion, he said, his voice breaking. And none of it means anything next to the fact that you'd have loved me the same if I'd told you the truth from the start. I stood there, printouts trembling in my hands, photos of the man I'd married, but wearing $1,000 suits instead of my brother's old clothes. Headlines screaming about missing billionaire Dominic Ashford, my husband, my stranger, my liar. Were you ever going to tell me? I whispered. The man I'd found bleeding in a storm 3 months ago, the one I'd married in a courthouse with $20 between us, owned more money than I could comprehend. Every vulnerable moment we'd shared, every time he'd let me pay for groceries with my teacher's salary, while he watched with those tender eyes, had it all been a game? But here's what haunts me more than the deception. Even knowing everything, my heart still reaches for him. Would you stay with someone who built your entire relationship on a lie, if that lie led you to the most authentic love you've ever known? Welcome to Mr. Cael Stories. I'm so grateful to each of you who've subscribed and joined this community. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. You're about to hear a story about trust, betrayal, and the kind of love that defies logic. Before we begin, do me a favor. If you've ever struggled with trusting someone after they've hidden the truth from you, drop a comment below. And if this story moves you, share it with someone who believes in second chances. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. A storm, a stranger, and a decision that would change my life forever. October rain has a particular cruelty to it. Cold enough to sting, heavy enough to drown. My name is Naomi Hartley, and I'd been driving home from another soul-crushing faculty meeting where they'd passed me over for department head. Again, 29 years old, newly single after my fiancé decided his coworker was more interesting, living in a cottage I could barely afford on the edge of town. I was contemplating whether my life could get any worse when my 10-year-old Honda made a sound like a dying animal and rolled to a stop on Route 47, 15 miles from town, no cell signal, nothing but fields and darkness. Perfect, I muttered, grabbing my jacket. Absolutely perfect. That's when I saw him. At first, I thought it was debris. A dark mass crumpled on the shoulder of the road about 50 yards ahead. Then it moved. My heart launched into my throat. I ran, rain soaking through my clothes instantly. He was face down in the mud, blood mixing with rainwater, running from a gash on his temple. Mid-30s maybe, dark hair plastered to his skull, wearing clothes that might have been expensive once, but were now shredded and filthy. "Sir, can you hear me?" I rolled him over, checking for breathing. His eyes opened, deep brown, disoriented, beautiful despite the pain etched around them. "Don't, hospital," he managed, gripping my wrist with surprising strength. "Please. You're hurt. You need... No hospital. No police, please." His voice cracked with desperation that bypassed every logical objection in my mind. I should have called 911. I should have left him there and flagged down the next car. Instead, I heard myself say, "Can you walk?" 20 minutes later, we were in my cottage. I'd flagged down a truck, gotten my car jumped, and brought home a bleeding stranger who still hadn't told me his name. "This is insane," I muttered, helping him onto my couch. "I don't even know you." "Dominic," he said quietly. "My name is Dominic." "Well, Dominic, hold still." I retrieved my first aid kit, hands shaking as I cleaned the wound on his head. It wasn't as bad as it looked. Head wounds always bled dramatically. No concussion signs that I could see. He watched me the entire time, those dark eyes following my movements, with an intensity that made my skin warm despite my wet clothes. "Why are you helping me?" he asked. I met his gaze. Because someone needed to. Something shifted in his expression. Gratitude, wonder, something deeper I couldn't name. "Thank you, Naomi. I didn't tell you my name." He nodded toward the mail on my coffee table, a slight smile touching his lips despite the pain. Good detective skills for someone who just picked up a stranger. Terrible survival instincts for someone who just picked up a stranger, I corrected, but I smiled back. I made tea while he showered in my spare bathroom, wearing my late father's robe that I'd kept for reasons I couldn't explain. When he emerged, clean and bandaged, he looked different. Refined features, strong jaw, the kind of bone structure that belonged in magazines. "You should rest," I said, suddenly aware of how intimate this was. This man in my home, in my father's robe, looking at me like I'd saved his life. "I don't want to impose. It's midnight. It's pouring. And you have a head injury. You're staying. My teacher voice came out. The one that didn't accept arguments. That slight smile again. Yes, ma'am. I gave him the couch, retreated to my bedroom, and lay awake for hours listening to the storm and wondering what I just invited into my life. I didn't know then that the stranger on my couch was worth more than my entire town. I only knew that when he'd looked at me with those grateful eyes, something in my chest had recognized something in his. Morning light found me in the kitchen, making coffee and questioning my sanity. That smells like heaven. I turned to find Dominic in the doorway, still wearing my father's robe, hair damp from another shower, looking remarkably recovered, and remarkably attractive, which my exhausted brain absolutely did not need to notice. How's your head? Better, thanks to you. He accepted the coffee I offered, our fingers brushing. I owe you an explanation. You don't owe me anything. I have nowhere to go, he said quietly. No ID, no money, no one I can call. I know how that sounds, but you're running from something. He didn't deny it. From a life that was suffocating me. I needed to disappear for a while. Figure out who I am without. He stopped, jaw tightening. I sound crazy. You sound lost. I understood that. God, did I understand that. He stayed. One day became 3, became a week. He fixed my broken porch railing, repaired the leak under my sink, cooked meals that tasted impossibly sophisticated for someone with no money. We talked until 2 a.m. about philosophy, about dreams, about the ways life breaks and remakes us. And I felt myself falling, dangerously, impossibly falling. I need to tell you something, he said on day 12, finding me grading papers at the kitchen table. My stomach dropped. You're leaving. The opposite. He sat across from me, nervous in a way I'd never seen him. I need legal status, a social security number, a way to exist in the world again. And you mentioned your landlord is selling this place, that you might lose it. Dominic, marry me. The words hung in the air like smoke. That's insane, I whispered. Completely, he agreed. But I need stability to rebuild my life. And you need, Naomi? I see how hard you work, how much you sacrifice. This house means something to you. If we married, I could get documentation, find work, help you buy it. A partnership. You're talking about marriage like a business arrangement. I'm talking about 2 people who've become friends helping each other. He reached across the table, covering my hand with his. The touch sent electricity up my arm. But I won't lie and say it's only that. These 12 days with you have been the most honest I've felt in years. So marry me. Not for love, just for a chance. I should have said no. Should have seen the red flags. Instead, I said, okay. The courthouse ceremony took 11 minutes. I wore a blue dress I'd bought on clearance. He wore khakis and a white shirt from the thrift store. The judge looked bored. There were no flowers, no music, no guests. But when Dominic slipped the simple gold band on my finger and said, I do, his hands were shaking. And when I said it back, I meant it in ways I wasn't ready to admit. That night, we stood in the hallway between our bedrooms, his in the spare room, mine down the hall. Good night, wife, he said softly. Good night, husband. Neither of us moved. The air between us felt combustible. Finally, he stepped back, disappearing into his room. I lay awake imagining what might have happened if one of us had been braver. Marriage, even a practical one, changes things. Suddenly there were 2 toothbrushes in the bathroom. Coffee made before I woke up. Someone to talk to about my day who actually listened. Dominic found work at a local restaurant, just washing dishes, he said. But he attacked it with the dedication of someone rebuilding from ground zero. You're too good at this, I teased one evening, watching him prepare coq au vin like it was second nature. At cooking? At everything. You fix things like you've done it professionally. You know wine regions. You quoted Nietzsche last night from memory. Who are you really? Something flickered in his eyes. Fear, maybe. I'm whoever I'm becoming. The past doesn't matter. But it did. It mattered in the way he occasionally zoned out, staring at nothing. In the careful way he avoided certain questions. In the sadness that sometimes crossed his face when he thought I wasn't looking. 5 weeks into our marriage, everything changed. We'd spent the evening on the couch, my legs across his lap, watching a movie. His hand rested on my ankle, thumb tracing absent circles that made concentration impossible. Naomi, he said when the credits rolled. I looked at him. He was already looking at me. This arrangement, Is it working for you? My heart hammered. Yes. Is it for you? Too well. His hand slid higher, to my calf. That's the problem. Why is that a problem? Because I agreed to be your friend, your legal husband. Not, his jaw clenched, not whatever I'm wanting to be right now. Rain started outside. It always seemed to rain at our most important moments. What do you want to be? I whispered. He moved then, pulling me closer, his face inches from mine. Everything. I want to be everything to you. Then be. He kissed me like a man starving, deep and desperate and devastatingly tender. I opened to him, hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer, closer, never close enough. We stumbled to my bedroom, shedding clothes between kisses. When his shirt came off, I saw the full map of him, broad shoulders, lean muscle, a few scars that told stories he'd never shared. You're shaking, he murmured against my neck. So are you. I've wanted you since that first night, since you looked at me like I was worth saving. His hands explored my body with reverent attention, learning every curve, every sound I made. When he laid me on the bed, rain drumming against the windows, he paused. If you want to stop, don't you dare stop. What followed was slow and intense, and so emotionally charged I felt tears slip down my temples. He moved inside me like he was memorizing me, whispering my name like a prayer, watching my face with those soulful eyes that saw too much. God, Naomi, he breathed, forehead pressed to mine. You're undoing me. Good, I gasped, arching into him. Be undone. Be real. When we finished, trembling and tangled together, he held me like I might disappear. I traced patterns on his chest, feeling his heartbeat gradually slow. I've never felt this with anyone, he said into the darkness. Neither have I. I need to tell you. Not tonight, I interrupted, suddenly afraid of what he might confess. Tonight, just be here with me. He kissed my forehead. Always. The weeks that followed were blissful in ways I'd never experienced. We made love constantly. Slow morning sessions before work. Urgent afternoon encounters when I came home for lunch. Long nights of exploration and whispered confessions. He learned my body like scripture, found places that made me gasp his name, gave me pleasure I hadn't known existed. But intimacy breeds observation. I noticed things. The way he savored wine, identifying notes and regions with expert precision. His knowledge of art when we visited a gallery. How he unconsciously straightened his posture when we passed the country club, like he belonged there. The expensive watch I found hidden in his jacket pocket when I was doing laundry. Where did this come from? I asked, holding up the sleek timepiece that looked like it cost more than my car. I found it, he said quickly. Too quickly. At the restaurant. In the lost and found, they said I could keep it after 90 days. The lie sat between us like a physical thing. Okay, I said, setting it down. That night, he made love to me with desperate intensity, like he could erase my doubts with passion. And God help me, I let him. I let sensation override suspicion. Let pleasure drown out the small voice asking why my dishwasher husband owned a watch with diamonds on its face. I told myself love meant trust. I didn't know yet that sometimes love means demanding the truth. The phone calls started in week 8. Dominic would be cooking or reading, then his cell would vibrate. He'd glance at it, excuse himself to the porch, and speak in hushed tones I couldn't decipher. Work stuff, he'd say when he came back. The restaurant calls you at 10 p.m.? Scheduling issues. That smile that usually melted me. Don't worry. But I did worry, especially when the black Mercedes appeared. Twice in 1 week, I came home to find it parked across the street. Sleek, expensive, tinted windows. When I mentioned it to Dominic, his face went carefully blank. Probably lost tourists. In a car worth more than this house? Naomi. He pulled me close, kissing my neck in that way that usually derailed my thoughts. You're stressed. Come here. He guided me to the bedroom, undressing me with practiced ease, using his mouth and hands to make me forget questions. We came together hard and fast, his body demanding mine in ways that felt more like distraction than connection. Afterward, as he slept, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. My best friend Kennedy had warned me over coffee that morning. You married a stranger, Naomi. Literally. You don't know his last name, where he's from, anything about his family. What if he's dangerous? He's not. How do you know? Because I felt it. Because when he held me, I felt safer than I ever had. Because the way he looked at me couldn't be fake. Could it? 2 days later, I found the designer suit jacket. It was buried in the back of his closet, wrapped in dry cleaning plastic. Charcoal gray, impeccable tailoring, a label I recognized from magazines. Tom Ford. My hands trembled as I checked the pockets. A business card. Ashford Global Enterprises. A ticket stub from a symphony in Boston, dated 4 months ago. Who are you? I whispered to the empty room. When Dominic came home that evening, I was sitting at the kitchen table, jacket laid out in front of me. He froze in the doorway. Naomi, who are you? He ran a hand through his hair, and for the first time, I saw real fear in his eyes. I can explain. Then explain. That life, it's not who I am anymore. What life? Dominic, you own a Tom Ford jacket, and you're washing dishes for minimum wage. Nothing about this makes sense. He crossed to me, kneeling, taking my hands. I'm the man who loves you. Isn't that enough? No, I said, even as tears spilled over. It's not. I've given you everything. My home, my trust, my body, my heart. And you're still hiding from me. I'm not hiding. I'm protecting you from complications you don't need. I need the truth. The truth is, I love you more than I've ever loved anyone. He kissed my palms, my wrists, working his way up my arms. Let me show you. Let me prove it. And because I was weak, because I loved him, because his touch made me lose all sense, I let him. He made love to me on the kitchen table, then against the wall, then finally in our bed, whispering promises between kisses. My body surrendered even as my mind screamed warnings. When I woke at 3 a.m., he was watching me sleep, looking devastated. I'm sorry, he whispered, for everything. I pretended to still be asleep, tears sliding silently into my pillow. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday. Standard Manila, no return address, my name written in precise block letters. Inside, a single sheet of paper with a URL and a handwritten note. You deserve to know who you married, a concerned friend. My stomach turned to ice. I sat at my laptop, typed in the URL with shaking hands, and watched my world detonate. The Boston Globe. Billionaire CEO Dominic Ashford, still missing after 3 months. Forbes. Ashford Global Enterprises in crisis as founder remains vanished. TMZ. Dominic Ashford sighting? Rumors swirl about tech giants' whereabouts. And photos. God, so many photos. My husband in tailored tuxedos at charity galas. Shaking hands with senators. On the cover of Fortune magazine. Standing in front of a building with his name in steel letters 20 feet high. Dominic Ashford. Not just wealthy. Not just successful. $4 billion, according to Forbes. $4 billion. And he'd let me buy groceries with my teacher's salary. Let me worry about the electric bill. Let me think we were building something together as equals. I pulled up everything I could find. Son of industrial magnate Marcus Ashford. MIT graduate at 19. Built a tech empire from his dorm room. Known for being ruthless in business, reclusive in personal life. No wife, no public relationships. Vanished the night before a major merger meeting. The man in these photos looked like Dominic. Same face, same eyes. But everything else was different. This man looked cold, commanding. Nothing like the vulnerable stranger I'd found in the rain. Nothing like the husband who'd held me through nightmares and made me laugh until I couldn't breathe. Which one was real? The front door opened. Naomi, you home early? He stopped when he saw me. Saw the laptop. Saw the printouts scattered across the table. Ah, he said quietly. Just that. Ah. Were you ever going to tell me? My voice sounded eerily calm. He closed his eyes. Yes. When? After another month of lies? Another year? It wasn't. He moved toward me. I stood, putting the table between us. Don't come near me right now. Naomi, please. $4 billion. I laughed, and it sounded broken. You have $4 billion, and you let me, God. I used a coupon at the grocery store last week. I apologized for the cheap wine, and you just let me. It wasn't about the money. Then what was it about? Some kind of social experiment? Slumming it with the poor school teacher? Was it fun, playing pretend? I was trying to find something real. His voice cracked. Do you know what my life was? Every person wanting something from me. Every conversation a transaction. Every relationship contingent on what I could provide. I couldn't breathe, Naomi. I couldn't think. So I walked away from a board meeting and I just drove for days until I crashed my car on that road and you found me and I was what? Conveniently authentic? You were the first real thing I'd encountered in 20 years. He slammed his hand on the table. The first person who looked at me and saw a human being instead of a bank account or a business opportunity. Do you know what that felt like? Do you know what this feels like? I shouted back. Every moment we've shared, was any of it true? When you made love to me, when you promised you were being honest, when you said you'd never felt this way about anyone, were those just more lies? No. He circled the table now, and I didn't stop him. Those were the only true things I've said in years. How can I believe that? How can I believe anything? He stopped inches away, and I saw tears tracking down his face. I have $4 billion, he said, voice breaking, and none of it means anything next to the fact that you'd have loved me the same if I'd told you the truth from the start. That's what I was afraid of losing. Not your respect or your admiration. Your genuine love for the man I actually am, not what I own. So you lied to protect what? Your ego? To protect the only authentic relationship I've ever had. To have someone choose me, just me, without the weight of everything else. He reached for my face, and I let him, hating myself for it. I fell in love with you, Naomi. Really, truly in love. And I knew that the moment I told you, everything would change. You're right, I whispered. Everything has changed. I stepped back from his touch. I need you to leave. Naomi, get out. Go back to your billions and your empire and your lies. Get out of my house. This is our house. We're married. We're nothing. The words tasted like poison. We were never anything real. You made sure of that. He stood there, looking shattered, looking like the broken man I'd found in the rain. But I couldn't trust that version of him either. I couldn't trust any of it. I'll go, he finally said. But I love you. That's real, even if nothing else was. He left without packing, walked out into the evening, and I collapsed onto the floor, sobbing like my heart was tearing in half. Because it was. Before we continue, I need to know, have you ever loved someone you couldn't trust? Someone who made you question everything? Drop a comment and let me know. And if you're feeling this story, hit that like button. You won't believe what happens next. 3 days passed like 3 years. I called in sick to work, couldn't eat, couldn't sleep without dreaming of him. The house felt cavernous without Dominic's presence. Coffee tasted wrong. The silence was suffocating. Kennedy came over with wine and sympathy. You did the right thing. Then why does it feel like dying? Because you loved him. But babe, he lied about everything. Did he though? I stared at my wedding ring, still on my finger despite everything. The man who fixed my porch, who listened to my terrible day and made it better, who held me like I was precious. Was that fake? Does it matter if you can never trust him again? That was the question, wasn't it? I replayed every moment, every conversation, every time he'd deflected or changed the subject, but also every time he'd been vulnerable, the way he'd trembled the first time we made love, his tears, when I told him about losing my father, the morning I'd found him making breakfast, singing off-key, looking happier than I'd ever seen anyone. The moments that felt stolen from reality, had they been lies or the truest thing either of us had experienced. My phone buzzed, another voicemail from Dominic. I'd ignored the first 20. This time, I listened. Naomi, his voice was wrecked. I know you don't want to hear from me. I know I destroyed your trust. But I need you to understand something. When I found myself on that road, I wasn't running from responsibility or consequences. I was running from a version of myself I didn't recognize anymore. A man who made decisions that hurt people. Who prioritized profit over humanity. Who'd become exactly what his father wanted and lost himself completely. Then you stopped. You, with your kind eyes and terrible car, and this beautiful, fierce compassion. You took me in, and you saw me. Not Dominic Ashford, CEO. Just Dominic, a man. And for the first time in my adult life, I got to be that. Just a man. Who fell completely, devastatingly in love with a woman who teaches kids about literature, and makes the world better in quiet ways, and laughs with her whole body. I chose honesty over comfort every day after that first lie. I told you about my fears, my failures, my dreams. Everything except my name and my bank account. And I know that's not enough. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But I also know that what we built was real. The most real thing I've ever known. And I'll spend the rest of my life proving that to you, if you'll let me. I love you, Naomi Hartley. I love you broke, I love you angry, I love you doubting everything. I just love you. The voicemail ended. I sat there, tears streaming, heart cracking open. And I knew what I had to do. The Ashford building downtown was 60 stories of glass and steel, dominating the skyline, like a monument to everything I'd thought I knew about my husband. Security tried to stop me. I told them I was Mrs. Ashford. The looks on their faces confirmed they had no idea Dominic had gotten married. One call upstairs, and I was escorted to the penthouse level, a private elevator that required a key card and probably a retinal scan. The doors opened to a sprawling space that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the city, modern furniture that probably cost more than my annual salary, art that might have been original Rothkos. And Dominic, standing by the window in a suit that transformed him back into the man from those photos. He turned when he heard the elevator, eyes widening. Naomi. He looked terrible, exhausted, haunted, like he hadn't slept any better than I had. Nice place, I said, voice shaking. Really lived down to your standards at my cottage. Our cottage. He moved toward me carefully, like I might bolt. Everything I told you there was true. Was it? Because this. I gestured at the opulence surrounding us. This is your truth. Not dish soap and thrift store clothes and pretending to be someone you're not. That wasn't pretending. That was the freest I've ever been. You lied, Dominic. I did. About my name, my money, my past. I lied about everything except how I felt about you. He stopped a few feet away. I married a woman I found stubborn and brilliant and breathtakingly kind. I stayed for the one who made me want to be better than I'd been. That, more than any fortune, is the marriage I'd have said yes to twice. The words, my words from the voicemail I'd left him last night, coming from his mouth, broke something in me. I'm so angry at you, I whispered. I know. I don't know if I can trust you again. I know. But I love you. God help me, I love you anyway. His breath caught. Naomi. No more secrets, I said fiercely. Ever. Not to protect me, not to protect yourself. If we do this, we do it with complete honesty. Yes, anything, everything. And we start over. Really start over. I need to meet the real Dominic Ashford, all of him. The CEO and the man who does dishes. The billionaire and the person who quoted philosophy on my couch. All of it. I can do that. He closed the distance between us. Can you forgive me? I don't know yet, I admitted, but I'm willing to try. He kissed me then, soft, tentative, reverent. I kissed him back, tasting salt from tears I wasn't sure were his or mine. Take me to bed, I whispered against his lips. No more walls between us. I want all of you. His bedroom was all clean lines and muted colors, but I barely noticed. We undressed each other slowly, reverently, like we were meeting for the first time and the 1,000th time simultaneously. I missed you, he breathed against my skin. 3 days felt like dying. Then bring me back to life. He laid me on sheets that felt like water, expensive and cool, and loved me with his whole body. This wasn't the desperate passion of our previous encounters. This was slow and deliberate, an apology and a promise written in touch. He kissed every inch of me, whispering confessions between caresses. I love how you furrow your brow when you're grading papers. I love that you sing in the shower. I love your terrible sense of direction, and your excellent taste in books, and the way you fight for your students like they're your own children. I arched into him, hands tangling in his hair. I love that you fix things without being asked, that you remember how I take my coffee, that you cry at beautiful music and you're terrible at poker, and you look at me like I'm your whole world. When he finally entered me, we both gasped, not just at the physical sensation, but at the emotional intimacy of it. Complete vulnerability, complete trust, being rebuilt moment by moment. I see you, he murmured, moving inside me with aching tenderness. All of you, the strength and the fear and the woman who took a chance on a stranger. I see you, Naomi. I see you too, I managed, pleasure building like a wave. Both versions, all versions. Just stay real with me. Always. We moved together, finding rhythm, building towards something that felt bigger than physical release. When I shattered, crying out his name, he followed seconds later, forehead pressed to mine, eyes locked on mine. In that moment, there were no secrets, no lies, no billionaire, no teacher, just two people who'd found each other in a storm and we're choosing each other again in the aftermath. I'm still angry, I said later, wrapped in his arms, his heartbeat steady under my ear. You should be. And this doesn't fix everything. I know. But I choose you. I choose us. The real us, whoever that turns out to be. He kissed my forehead. That's all I'm asking for. A chance to build something authentic. So what now? Now, we start over. Properly. He pulled back to look at me. Naomi Hartley. I'm Dominic Ashford. I'm a CEO who's been neglecting his company to figure out his life. I have more money than I know what to do with, and not nearly enough real relationships. I'm in love with my wife, who I met under false pretenses, and married in a courthouse. I want to do better, be better, with you. I smiled through fresh tears. Naomi Hartley. High school English teacher, cottage owner, married to a man who's going to spend a very long time earning back my complete trust. I love him anyway, even when he's infuriating. Especially then. He kissed me again, and I tasted our future in it. Complicated, yes. Challenging, absolutely, but real. Finally, blessedly real. 6 months later. I'm in Dominic's office, our office, since I started running the Ashford Foundation's literacy program. Turns out, a billionaire's wife has access to resources that can change a lot of young lives. I'm still teaching, still living in our cottage, which we've renovated beautifully, still stubbornly independent. But now I'm also attending galas in borrowed jewelry, learning about investments, meeting the complex reality of Dominic's world. He's different too, more present. He cut his hours, delegated more, started seeing a therapist to deal with the family trauma that made him run in the first place. We're building something neither of us expected, a partnership based on complete honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. Ready to go home? He asks, appearing in the doorway. Home. Our cottage where we met, where we fell in love, where we're learning what it means to choose each other every single day. Always, I say. Because here's what I've learned. Real love isn't about perfect circumstances or complete information from the start. It's about what you do when the truth comes out. Whether you run from the mess or stay and build something better from the broken pieces. I married a man I found broken on a roadside in a storm. I stayed for the one who kept choosing honesty over comfort every single day after. That, more than any fortune, is the marriage I'd have said yes to twice. So that's Naomi and Dominic's story. What do you think? Can love survive deception if the feelings were always real? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to rebuild trust in a relationship? What did it take? If this story touched you, if it made you feel something, hit that like button and share it with someone who believes in second chances. And if you're not already subscribed to Mr. Cael Stories, what are you waiting for? Subscribe now for more stories about love, redemption, and the messy beauty of human connection. Thank you for being here, for listening, for being part of this community. Until next time, remember, the best love stories aren't the ones without conflict. They're the ones where people choose each other despite it. I'll see you in the next story.